Sumo is a weird sport overall. There's no doubt about it. When I first encountered it on Eurosport in my early childhood while on a beautiful Bavarian summer vacation, I took it for some kind of freak show. But even back then, I learned that it is a serious sport when I stared stunned at the TV as one wrestler almost casually carried out his opponent out of the ring. I understood that these guys must be seriously strong. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago my passion for the sport was truly rekindled when YouTube randomly suggested the March 2024 tournament highlight videos to me. I was instantly hooked and I've watched every single tournament since. But eventually I wondered how sumo even came to be as we know it. So I did what I know best, I pulled as much data as I could from the sumo database and compiled it. But then I thought to myself, why not share my learning journey about sumo's most recent history with all of you guys? I don't think anyone has attempted to even make a tournament by tournament breakdown yet. And it all starts here in January of 1958. And with that, I bid you a warm welcome to the Hatsubasho of 1958, the cradle of modern sumo. Just a heads up, this will be a very long video. I will briefly talk about our wrestlers, show you who the torchbearers are and give you a few numbers and stats. The main focus of the video will be a day-by-day, detailed breakdown with all the important fights, achievements and milestones. And lastly, we will have a good look at the results. So sit back, put your feet up, because we're gonna be here for a while. This horrible graph was my first attempt of making sense of all the sumo data. It shows the win-loss ratio of every single sumo wrestler since 1958 over every single match they fought. Win and move up a space, lose and move down. This plot is particularly fascinating to me because it contains every match, every record, every story arc, every redemption and every downfall. It's just a shame we can't make any of that out except for a few select overachievers. But this downplays the immense contributions of the noisy middle. But technically, whatever we will talk about today or in the future, it's all in here. And this is the same win-loss data since 1958 with one key difference. It only contains the data from those wrestlers who took part in the inaugural Modern Sumo Tournament. Of course, they had careers long before 1958, but I was so free to give it a great big reset. Everyone starts at zero, and you can quickly spot a few outliers. That prominent red line belongs to the first legendary wrestler of the era, and incidentally, it's the same wrestler which will win today's basho as well. I consider 1958 as a sort of blank slate, but history is important. So I think it is completely valid to view 1957 as the actual start of modern sumo, like for example Wikipedia does. Really, the biggest difference is that there are now 6 bashos per year instead of 5 like in the previous year. This means 20% more strain on the body, 20% higher chance of catching an injury. It is just a lot. And many of the guys here originally trained under a way more relaxed calendar with more off time and chances for recovery. I just think 1958 marks the year of sumo fully transitioning into an act of endurance, an experiment to see who can swim and who will sink. 1957 ended on a weird note as well. The Yushu winner was Maegashira 14 Tamanomi with a spotless 15 wins and 0 losses. In fact, he faced 14 other Maegashira and only one Sekiwake, Tokitsuyama, who himself had a good but not impressive tournament. And it's not like Tamanomi is a novice. He had been at times successful at Sekiwake before, and he carries himself like it. He was a flashy guy who, even in the days of black and white TV, boasted one of the first colored mawashi, a golden one no less. And in 1957 his sumo totally backed it up. Let's consider the 4 Yokozuna for a moment. Yes, 4. That's an absolutely insane number, and the 50s just were bursting with Yokozuna left and right. When Tamanomi reached 13 victories, they still needed 2 days to fight amongst each other. Why he wasn't matched against, at least in Ozeki, I don't know. There were plenty of options, like Wakanohana, the runner-up of the tournament. Wakanohana is one of those mythical people. He looks very ordinary, but he earned his nickname Devil of the Dojo, and when you see him fight, you just kinda get it. He has been sitting on Ozeki for a couple of years now, and I'd argue in 56 he was almost promoted, but an injury spoiled his second Yusho. Still, even while recovering, he posted consistent double-digit wins. And recently he's been eyeing 12 and 13 wins again. He's popular, carries himself well, and seems humble and approachable. That means he is the next Yokozuna prospect for sure. This tournament may just decide his fate. And speaking of Yokozuna, there's something for everyone here. Yoshibayama has the muscles, Kagami-Sato is heavy and can work the belt, Chiyonoyama is that lanky technical type, and Tochi Nishiki is that all-rounder with the sumo body you would easily recognize as a modern build. Each guy is totally distinct. Now that we know some of the background, let's look how they rank up. So this is how they stack up in the rankings chart. Quick word before I start. I will try to use the Japanese words where possible, but I am German and I'm very focused on my English, and now Japanese enters the mix. It will be horrible. Just be patient with my pronunciation. Okay, so this is the Banzuke. Tochi Nishiki was the winningest Yokozuna. He goes to the top, followed by the two veterans Yoshibayama and Kagami-Sato, and lastly tall guy Chiyonoyama. On top of that we have 3 Ozeki, fan favorite Wakanohana and his direct eternal rival Asashio. They fought 21 times in total so far, and it's an almost even split. Asashio is a little less consistent though, but I'd argue on a good day his ceiling is higher than Wakanohana's. He just doesn't have those good days as often as he would like. Matsunobori is also here, but he's injured and won't appear in the tournament. And we aren't lacking in Sekiwake either. Kotogahama leads the charge, he's a consistent double-digit man and eyeing an Ozeki spot. Tokitsuyama and Wakahaguro have more to prove, their foundations are a little bit more shaky, but overall I'd say they've been consistent if nothing else. And the Sanyaku are rounded out by another 3 Komusubi. Seeing how many freaks there are above them, the famously hardest rank in sumo is extra hard in this particular basho. And this is where we find Tamanoumi. He has been promoted all the way from Maegashira 14 to Komusubi 2. Any of them can hope for a Sekiwake spot with an outstanding performance, but it is more likely that they will get crushed under the sheer weight of the Sanyaku. It's not like there are many spots open either, it's a brutal spot to be in. The rest of the rankings are made up of Maegashira, and since the Sanyaku are so plentiful, they will battle all the way down to Maegashira 7, I think. So the Maegashira 1 and Maegashira 2 spots aren't of much better than the Komusubi, but maybe they can hope to bounce back coming week 2. Everyone here is likely to suffer though, one way or another. And further down we start to enter the double-digit Maegashira. This is what I like to call the black hole of sumo. Entire careers waste away in these ranks. The difficulty ramps up steeply, and once you pick up your first, second or third major injury, there's almost no escape from here apart from the occasional visit to the Komusubi rank. And remember, we are looking way back in time here, so the Banzuke isn't limited to 42 wrestlers at all, so we have guys all the way down to Maegashira 21. It will shrink in the coming tournaments, but for now we have a whopping 55-man strong Makuuchi division. These guys here are the ones that need to be worried about demotion to Juryo. That means one slip up and they are done for. Sumo is a sport dominated by all kinds of body measures and numbers. The heavier or taller you are, or in other terms, the more freakish your biology, the better your chances are at winning. When it comes to height, Uchiyama is not only the tallest wrestler in the Banzuke, he's one of the tallest wrestlers ever. Think baseball player Aaron Judge for comparison. I haven't converted the metric units to eagles, but I think he is somewhere around 6'6" or 6'8", somewhere in that region. Takanishiki on the other hand is really short, deduct like 2 heads from Uchiyama. Sumo is a pushing and grappling sport. Anything that limits how much you can be moved around is a passive advantage. So another tall guy, Odachi, reigns supreme with 180 kilograms. That's almost 400 pounds. And a little fun fact, Yokozuna Kagami-Sato is a very close second. Kiryugawa though, he just weighs the same as your average Joe. It is so ordinary, even his BMI is that of a completely healthy, unremarkable adult at 23.3. And here Takanishiki holds another record. What he lacks in height, he makes up in weight. 53 is an enormous ratio by any measure. And quick disclaimer, I know the limits of BMI, but I still thought it would be very fun to show. Of course, these are the extremes. On average, our wrestlers are 178 centimeters tall, weigh a hefty 118 kilograms, and have an average BMI of 37.4. Youth and experience shouldn't be undervalued though. Our oldest wrestler at 38 is Hiro Segawa. And kind of weirdly, we have two youngest wrestlers, Atagoyama and Oikawa, sharing a birthday on January 11th, 1936. So at this point, Atagoyama and Oikawa are both 18 years old, and even weirder, these three guys are neighbors in the ranking charts as well. Hiro Segawa though has been wrestling almost as long as Oikawa and Atagoyama have been alive, through the entire Second World War as well. The most recent debutants are prospect Iwakaze and mid-ranked Tochi Ikari. Both are wrestling for a little less than 6 years. Overall though, 1958 was an aging but experienced roster. The average age is 30 and people have debuted on average 13.4 years ago. We have to quickly touch on stables. What's important here is that wrestlers train in stables and two wrestlers from the same stable won't face each other, unless it's a playoff. Honestly, this is one of the aspects of sumo that has evaded me, because it is something that happens largely outside of the ring. But there are two important things we need to note. Takasago, Tokitsukaze and Dewa no Umi occupy huge proportions of the Makuuchi division. And to nobody's surprise, Araizo stable is also here. The Yokozuna are all from different stables, and despite some similar namings, the wrestlers named Waka something actually come from all over the place. But if you are wondering why the Maegashira 1, for example, didn't square off on day 1, this is why. Just the same stable. And lastly, let's have a quick peek at the birthplaces. Now, just to boost the sample size a little bit of this gorgeous map, I included Juryo as well, just to show that wrestlers came from all over Japan, but mostly from the north. That's Hokkaido, Aomori and Akita. Tokyo isn't really visible here, but no less represented with 5 Makuuchi wrestlers, so let me quickly change the view here. So this is just Makuuchi, and the north is even stronger represented here, as well as the red dots of the islands of Tokyo and the Tokyo district itself. Quick disclosure here, I didn't really dig into the family history of each wrestler. Officially there are no foreign-born wrestlers, but we know stories like that of Rikidozen, for example. But with that out of the way, it's time to start the basho. On day 1, the East and West Maegashira of the same rank usually square off, or at least wrestlers of very comparable rank meet. The Sanyaku though will battle more amongst each other coming week 2. And since the lower rank battles start first, Takanishiki and Hakuryama have the honor to kick things off in Makuuchi. Ultimately it's Takanishiki, the shortest man, the lowest ranked wrestler, and the record BMI who bags the first win and hands a loss to Hakuryama. A win is traditionally marked with a white circle and a loss with a black one, so Takanishiki is on the left towards the white circle and Hakuryama is on the right at the black circle. Just for day 1, I want to show all the results. So winners are on the left and losers are on the right. But before we do that, there is another especially important match to cover. Tama no Umi, the most recent Yusho winner, battles Yokozuna Yoshibayama. How will he stack up? Sadly, I'm hesitant to show the entire fight, but just to show you a bit of what the wrestling style was at the time, I was so free to cut together some of the highlights. Tama no Umi is on the left side here, so if you squint you can actually spot Tama no Umi's Mawashi, which appears a little bit brighter in the grayscale. At this point in the fight, the two have been at it for a while now. And this is a key moment. Yoshibayama has a secure grab and a firm stance, while Tamanomi is struggling. Let's see how it plays out. Tamanomi fails a desperation headlock and Yoshibayama performs a textbook Yorikiri and escorts Tamanomi out of the ring very gently. The undefeated Yusha winner is no more. So that begs the question, is he really ready for that Komusubi rank at this point? Let's check out the other results. Ono Nishiki, Miyanishiki, Kiryugawa, Yoshinomine and Naruyama joined the winner's side against Izumi Nada, Oginohana, Dewa Minato, Yasume and Mainoyama. Moreover, Koninobori defeats Hirosegawa, Human Skyscraper Uchiyama is off with a win against Youngling Oikawa, Wakabayama defeats Atagoyama in the Battle of the Yamas, Heavyweight Odachi bests Koinose, and Fusanishiki beats Naruto Umi. In the upper Maegashira we have Dewa Nishiki, Osegawa, Tochi Ikari, Futatsuryu and Tokinishiki all picking up a win, while Fukunoumi, Kaizan, Hoshikabuto, Mitsenuyama and Shinobuyama leave day one disappointed with a loss. Sekiwake Tokitsuyama and Ozeki Asashio surprisingly lose against their Maegashira matchups. I've already hinted at Asashio's occasional slip-ups, and this time it is against Maegashira 3 Araiva on day 1. These early losses are likely to make that 1 or 2 match difference in the Yusha race, so these are extra infuriating. And similarly, Tokitsuyama has a rotten start against Maegashira 5 Shimanishiki. Tsurugamine vs Kitano Nada is the highest profile Maegashira matchup of the day, and Tsurugamine is sure to beat the higher ranked Rikishi. Shimitsugawa, Wakahaguro, Katagohama and Wakanohana all take care of business though and proudly defend the honor of the Sanyaku. And likewise, so do all 4 Yokozuna. Everyone comes away with a win. As I said before, I don't want to go through every single match on every single day, so from now on I will list the highlight matches right here on the left side. But more importantly, throughout the bar show we will explore some other really cool statistics as well. On day 1 we had 2 highlight bouts and we have already seen Yoshibayama finishing off Tamanomi, but there was actually another lower stakes Sanyaku battle where Yokozuna Tochi Nishiki defeated Komusubi Wakamaeda. Day 1 in general is pretty uneventful. I mean, it is still anyone's game, so we have plenty of time to look at all the cool finishing moves which the wrestlers have used. My plan is to record the first instance of every finishing technique in the modern sumo era. But this means on day 1 we will have to wade through a whole swamp of moves, but bear with me here, I'm sure you are gonna learn something. Let's start from the top. Kakenage, that's a hooking inner thigh throw. Leg hooks were a lot more common back then. Sotogake is the outside leg trip. Okuridashi is the rear push-out if you manage to turn your opponent around. Yorikiri is the defining sumo move, forcing the opponent back and out of the ring, both hands on the opponent's belt. We have seen Yoshibayama use it on Tamanomi already. Uchari is the backwards pivot throw. Sukuinage, the beltless arm throw. Kataskashi, which is defined as the under-shoulder swing throw. Really hard to spot in my opinion. Uwatenage is another classic, the overarm throw, meaning you have one hand on the belt from the outside and toss your opponent. Oshidashi, another classic move, because it is similar to Yorikiri, pushing the opponent backwards and out of the ring with no hands on the opponent's belt. Tsukitaoshi, the frontal thrust down. Not to be mistaken with Yoritaoshi, the frontal crush out. Hitakikomi, the slap down. And last but not least, Tsukidashi, the frontal thrust out. Again, very hard to spot in my opinion. The NHK has a great collection of shorts on YouTube showcasing each technique, and I implore every single one of you to binge them thoroughly. And in addition to new moves, I want to briefly highlight some rare techniques as well, whenever those appear. The Kakenage, Sotogake and Okuridashi are some real gems in here you won't see every day. So much for day 1. Let's jump ahead to day 2 of the Basho. On day 2 the mood is generally still calm. We have a few Sanyaku battles, but more often than not the Sanyaku are busy stomping the Maegashira. At least we have Wakahaguro against Shionoyama. Wakahaguro is on the left, Shionoyama on the right. The Yokozuna is in a Henka kind of mood, and I think Wakahaguro reacts well, at least as well as he could, but ultimately he gets spun around and thrown to the ground, never able to recover. We also have Tsurugamine against Tochinishiki, and their fight is really intense. In the beginning they are in a stalemate, but ultimately Tochinishiki is pushing Tsurugamine to the edge. And Tsurugamine makes 2 leg hook attempts, but is more or less tossed out, so the Yokozuna are having another great day it seems. Well, maybe not quite. Actually, Kagamisato goes 1-1 against the Komusubi Shimitsugawa. This is probably a good time to explain something. Kagamisato has been around for a long time, and he isn't exactly happy with his performances anymore. Age is catching up fast. So he wants to prove to himself that he still got it, and allegedly he made a promise. If he gets 10 wins, he continues his career. Less than 10, he retires. This means he can only afford 4 more losses. But maybe he just takes a while to really get going. The other Yokozuna of, let's call it, advanced age isn't faring much better. In fact, he's doing arguably worse, giving up a Kimboshi against youth personified Iwakaze. So ultimately both stand at 1-1, and day 2 blesses us with some more never before seen techniques. Araiwa goes for 2 wins and uses the Hikyotoshi on Wakamaeda. That is pulling down by the hand. Hajiyama uses Tsuridashi, which is among the most popular moves, literally carrying out the opponent, which is always very impressive with guys weighing on average 110 kilos. Just imagine carrying a large fridge that wants to fight you. Kotogahama defeats Shionishiki by Uchigake, the inside leg trip. And lastly, the lanky Uchiyama uses Tsukitaoshi, the frontal thrust down, similar to the aforementioned Tsukiyotoshi. And it was a good day for rare techniques as well. Hikyotoshi, Kataskashi and Uchigake all have blessed us with their appearance once again, and it really makes me wish there was full footage for all the fights available, but sadly there isn't. Day 3 I always feel is the first day where you can really spot who is in form and who isn't. See example 1, Wakanohana. Unlike Tamanoumi, Wakanohana has not slowed down. And the way he disposes of Tokitsuyama here is just beautiful, with the Nimai Geri. An absolute textbook kick. Tamanoumi meanwhile gets dealt his 3rd loss by fellow Komusubi Shimitsugawa. Meanwhile, Iwakaze gets his 2nd Kimboshi in as many days. And we have another batch of new techniques. If you look at the very top you can read Dashinage, don't worry too much about that. I must assume that's another unspecified technique, or maybe I'm missing something here. Basically it just means an unspecified throw. More interesting is the Amiuchi, the fisherman's throw by Hirosegawa, an absolute gem. There's also the Izamiyashi, the step out, so we can glean that Shionoyama just lacked ring awareness and it was a rare blunder by the Yokozuna. We also have the Kotenage, that's the arm lock throw, and that one is very heavy on the elbows. And here's the illustration for the Nimai Geri, which we've already seen used by Wakanohana. And on the bottom of the list is the Oshitaoshi, the frontal pushdown. And I would actually argue we have more rare techniques than just Tsukitaoshi and Izamiyashi, but it's okay, the algorithm is a bit wonky in the first few bashos anyway. It's day 4 and slowly things are starting to heat up. Double Kimboshi winner Iwakaze is arguably the most informed wrestler next to his opponent Wakanohana. So it's really exciting these two meet so early in the tournament. Both come into the match blazing hot. To give some context before I start the clip, the referee is calling to continue the match. They are both locked up in position on the belt. But Wakanohana starts pushing. Iwakaze is at the edge of the ring and displays some amazing footwork, and it's really unclear who the winner of this match is. Did Iwakaze stay in, or did he touch, maybe with the edge of his foot, into the sand? In my opinion, it is almost impossible to tell a winner, but this could also be because of the grainy black and white footage. But I have to cut the referees some slack here. Back in the day there was no video review, and the Gyoji, whose name I sadly couldn't find, probably spotted Iwakaze's pinky actually making contact with the ground first. Either way, Wakanohana gets the win and stays undefeated. And on top of that, Tochi Nishiki equals Wakanohana's record, going 4 days undefeated against Shimizugawa and handing him his first loss. And apart from Tamanoumi on day 1, Yoshibayama can't seem to find a win. And in other news, we have a clash of the literal giants. Together, Odachi and Uchiyama are 330 kilograms heavy and almost 4 meters tall. And Odachi proves to be literally the bigger man today. Let's also introduce a new statistic called streaks. For the Maegashira wrestlers, I count 4 wins or 4 losses in a row as a streak based purely on my personal preference. The Sanyaku start at 5 wins or 5 losses. 2 undefeated Maegashira remain, Kiryugawa and Osegawa, both with high hopes of getting through the first third of the Basho undefeated. Fukunoumi, Hakuryuyama, Koinose and Shionishiki are still hoping for a win, but a comeback is certainly not impossible if they pick up from here. Kagami-sato is handing out yet another Kimboshi, this time to Ohikari, who incidentally has his first win. That means Kagami-sato can only afford 3 more losses. The outlook is truly awful. And the new techniques are finally winding down. Kitaguri might as well be a football move where you treat the opponent's leg as a ball and sweep it with the side of the foot. It is really effective at the tachi-ai. The opponent is lifted using the hands and the leg and then thrown. And last on the list, the kubinage is the headlock throw, often performed in desperation at the edge, but there are other uses as well. And with that, we leave day 4 behind and move on to day 5. We have finally arrived at day 5, and for the highlights we have an intriguing match between Sekiwake Wakahaguro and Komosumi Wakamaeda, 2 wrestlers with very similar body compositions. The fight starts at the final scuffle. And it's actually Wakamaeda upsetting Wakahaguro. Furthermore, Kotogahama is putting up a stellar performance, going 4-1 against Shimizugawa, and Tamanoumi is picking up at least some steam as Asashio has a second blunder. And moving on to the streaks, all the winning streaks we talked about on day 4 have ended. Izumi Nada is digging upwards from the very bottom with 4 wins in a row, youngster Oikawa is putting in a performance, and in the Sanyaku, Tochi Nishiki and Wakanohana stand as the only undefeated Sanyaku and undefeated wrestlers in general in the tournament so far. And on the complete opposite side of those records are Hakuryuyama and Koinose, who both have yet to pick up any win, and meanwhile Tsurugamine hasn't won since day 1. And speaking of winning, Kagami-sato and Uchiyama respectively have found completely new ways to win with Makiotoshi, that's the twist down, and Shitatenage, that's the underarm throw respectively. The Shitatenage is especially spectacular to watch, and Makiotoshi is additionally listed as a rare technique. And Tokitsuyama vs Araiva is a special case, a fusen, a forfeit, so presumably Araiva got injured on very short notice and had to drop out. So in conclusion, after 1/3 of the tournament, most wrestlers have continued their momentum, but day 5 in particular wasn't that eventful. Nearing the halfway point of the tournament, on day 6 Araiwa has officially dropped out. Let's check in with Tamanoumi, the last Yusho winner. He has picked up some first wins finally. And he could accelerate even further if it weren't for those pesky bumps in the road. One of those bumps is Chiyonoyama. And Chiyonoyama is quite ahead of Tamanoumi. He's 4-1 and currently involved in a scuffle with Tamanoumi, as you can see here on the still of the video. Actually, Tamanoumi has a brilliant idea in the scuffle. He goes for a leg hook. Now he isn't as proficient as Chiyonoyama, so Chiyonoyama returns the favor and drops Tamanoumi on his back. He's nice enough to help him up though. It's simple really, you won't beat Chiyonoyama at his own game. He is a Yokozuna for a reason and he is a seriously technical wrestler. So Chiyonoyama picks up another win and wins by Sotogake against Tamanoumi. And the Sanyaku are now regularly facing each other. Asashio beats Wakahaguro and Shimitsugawa beats Wakamaeda, establishing a real chasm of in-form and out-of-form Rikishi. We also have the biggest age gap in any matchup, with old-timer Hirosegawa defeating Oikawa. And another record, Uchiyama and Miyanishiki share a 30 cm height gap, the largest of the entire tournament. The streaks are also starting to dry up. Wakanohana remains the only undefeated wrestler as Kitano Nada presents an obstacle Tochi Nishiki couldn't overcome. And Tochi Nishiki's loss is also in the upsets category. It actually might be the biggest upset form-wise, but Kagamisato might as well paint the night sky with the amount of golden stars he's been handing out. This time to Maegashira 7 Shinobuyama. The Yokozuna is facing incredible difficulties. So much for our most important matchups, let's look at the new techniques. Actually, there's only a single one, the Hikake, that's the arm-grabbing force-out. Additionally, Oshidashi was a rarity apparently so far, and it finally appeared again. So let's jump ahead to day 7. The final day of the first tournament week is here. Tochi Nishiki in particular wants to recover his winning ways against struggling Wakahaguro. Let's have a quick look if he's able to manage. After some grappling around in the ring, he makes a really nice throw and re-establishes his dominance. So yesterday must just have been a kind of lapse in concentration. In the meantime, Kotogahama has been silently stacking up wins. And now he enters the Sanyaku matches hoping he can keep going. But I think against Wakamaeda he was expected to win anyways. So far Yokozuna Kagamisato has been in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. And if you thought he was doing bad, look at Yoshibayama. He is in absolute shambles. And it doesn't help that he's now facing high-ranking wrestlers in very good form like Shimitsugawa. Tamanoumi's stakes might not be quite as big, but he has expectations on his shoulders as well. And with a 2-5 record, he will be happy to get a winning record at this point. We also had a few other notable matchups. Yasome has successfully defeated one of the few wrestlers shorter than himself in Takanishiki. While the tallest wrestlers were almost 4 meters high when combined, these two don't even crack 3.5 meters. And after many streaks had dried up, finally many of them have returned. Wakanohana has had a spotless first week. Shinoboyama feels the momentum from the Kimboshi, unlike Iwakaze, whose Kimboshi remain the only 2 wins weirdly. Anenyama and Wakasegawa are struggling as well, possibly against the Sanyaku. Shimanishiki is on 5 consecutive losses, and Tsurugamine is even worse at 6. Izuminada's valiant efforts to battle out of the cellar have been halted meanwhile by fellow bottom dweller Miyanishiki. And all the upsets of day 7 are happening in the Maegashira ranks. Mostly in the double digits, defeating single digit Maegashira who are just in bad form. So congratulations to Fusanishiki, Oginohana and Oikawa for defeating Ohikari, Fukunoumi and Futatsuryu respectively. But I wanna highlight Oikawa's victory in particular, since the ranks are miles apart and he came in with the same record as Futatsuryu. He really defeated the odds today. And lastly, for the new techniques, there are actually no new techniques, we just have 2 rare ones. And those are the Kotenage and the Tsukiyotoshi. Before we start week 2, let's recap. 2 Yokozuna struggling, 2 look very good, previous Yushu winner Tamanoumi is nowhere to be found, and Wakanohana is the sole leader. A few Maegashira are also in contention, and we have some really outstanding Sekiwake and Komusubi performances, and they will all be tested in week 2. On day 8, Araiwa is back, and I'm glad to see it, because all the footage I've seen of him gets me really excited to watch more. Let's look at some other highlights. Asashio is stringing together some wins, against Kotogahama no less. Let's look at the clip. Might not have looked that impressive, but he forces Kotogahama to the ground. We have 2 highlight matches to discuss. First of all, Tamanoumi vs Kagamisato. I guess if there was such a concept as tanking in sumo, Tamanoumi vs Kagamisato would be the tank bowl. I can kinda imagine throwing a match for health or recovery reasons, but generally a defeat has permanent ramifications and basically no upsides. This means that both Tamanoumi and Kagamisato are desperately battling this. As per usual, we start with the grips, and Kagamisato wins kind of convincingly here. And it finally gives us a glimpse into what Kagamisato's usual sumo looks like. And this is potentially a huge victory for him, because 10 wins are still within reach. Let's jump to the other struggling Yokozuna, Yoshibayama, who is 3-4 against Wakahaguro, the Sekiwake, on the same record. And Yoshibayama can't escape. He's really unfortunate, he gets turned around and pushed out. So this means crisis mode for the Yokozuna. If he needed rest to heal an injury, he should have pulled out of the tournament way earlier. Let's look at some other highlights. Asashio is finally stringing wins together, and against Kotogahama no less. Chiyonoyama is picking up where other Yokozuna are faltering, and Wakanohana is still undefeated. And even though Shimitsugawa has lost at 5-3, he's still doing well considering his rank. And of course there are still several winning streaks going on. Chiyonoyama is up there with 5, Hirosegawa has 4, Long Man Uchiyama is coming out of nowhere with 4, and Shinoboyama is still rolling, and of course Wakanohana is on a completely different level. But many wins means many losses. Anenyama 5 losses in a row, Atagoyama with 4, Iwakaze with 5, Kiryugawa with 4 losses after 4 initial wins, and Shimanishiki on 6. And we are blessed with 2 additional upsets. First of all, Takanishiki stands tall despite his height and defeats Dewanishiki, who is 11 ranks above him. That means that there are 22 wrestlers separating them. And Tsurugamine, despite having a bad record, despite going against Sekiwake in better form, still pulls out the win, so huge kudos to him. And it has been similarly chaotic on the Kimarite side of things. First of all, we have Sabaori, literally the forward force down, where Asashio manages to literally suppress Kotogahama. And we are getting into weird Kimarite territory now. Komatasukui literally translates to, and I quote, over thigh scooping body drop. And this includes grabbing the opponent's thigh and pulling up. And lastly, Kirikaishi is the twisting backwards knee trip. Of course, all 3 are also rare, and additionally there was a Tsukuinage and a Kubinage. And so far every wrestler has at least picked up 1 win, so no Makekoshi so far, and we can move on straight to day 9. The Basho is in full force. On the right side we can see Wakahaguro trying everything to deal Wakanohana his first loss. But Wakanohana came prepared. He is steady and lifts 176 kg Wakahaguro out like it's nothing. The Sanyaku fights are ramping up fast. Asashio has found consistency, defeating Komusubi Shimitsugawa. Kotogahama is due for a comeback, overcoming no other than the Yokozuna Chiyonoyama, who mind you is in very good form, but Tochi Nishiki is the top Yokozuna again, disposing of Tamanoumi, who gets the full brunt from every Sanyaku member. Sadly for Kagamisato and Yoshibayama, it is business as usual, and even against middling opposition. It is honestly a disheartening sight. There was one more notable matchup. It's the match of the Spring Chicks, both in their early 20s, and I guess youth prevailed as Atagoyama picks up a much needed win and avoids Makekoshi. The streaks aren't dying down either. Uchiyama stretches to 5 wins in a row, Shinobu-yama is on 6, Waka no Hana of course on 9, and Shionoyama has lost his streak. Tamanaumi finds himself on a losing streak with 4 alongside Kiryugawa who sits on 5, Shimanishiki on a dangerous 7, and Shionishiki is also on 4. And we have a few additional upsets. Kagamisato may have not dropped a golden star, but he still should have won this matchup against Komusubi Wakamaeda. And weirdly enough, both Maegashira 20 defeat both Maegashira 12. And I think especially Odachi should have performed way better here. And lastly, Dewa Minato has beaten Fukunoumi. And 2 new techniques join the lineup. That's Totari, the armbar throw, and Shitate Hineri, the underarm twisting throw, which must have looked amazing on the tall-grown Odachi. And if you were in the arena back in the day, you would have also come to enjoy an additional Uchari and Tsukidashi. And lastly, on day 9, with 1 loss each, Uchiyama and Tochinishiki join Waka no Hana with Kachikoshis. Hakuryuyama and Shionishiki sadly could not secure winning records and are on the difficult path of scrapping any win they can get to salvage their ranks. It's day 10. After having only secured 3 wins, Yoshibayama pulls out before his potential Makekoshi could be announced. The image is from day 8, but even then he must have known. His sword throw looked anything but spirited, and so did his sumo. Maybe to save face he leaves the tournament, but the writing was on the wall way before day 10. Now let's focus on the wrestlers that are still in the tournament. Kagamisato goes up against the blazing hot Asashio. And sadly, Asashio seems to have one of his moments here. He is slapped down, maybe he slips a little bit, and Kagamisato gets the win. And for the fight of Waka no Hana and Shionoyama, I have no choice but to show the whole thing. So let's watch the Tachiai and I will try to stop the fight right about here. Look, Shionoyama already pulled off a hanker this tournament, so he clearly thinks hard about his tactics and an early start was never off the table. Maybe this isn't as outrageous as some of the stuff we see in the very modern days like recent tournaments, but it's still up there. Let's focus on the rest of the fight, because this early start shouldn't diminish from the rest of the tactics he uses. His approach was smart, because he uses very effective slapping, never lets Waka no Hana get to his belt and makes him look very small. What we learn from this is that Waka no Hana isn't invincible, he can be defeated, he has weaknesses, and there are cracks in his performance. So let's discuss the important matches of today. Shionoyama is catching up, Asashio has trouble keeping up, Kagamisato isn't done yet, and Tochinishiki is now the joint leader after defeating Tokitsuyama. And another fun side note, our 2 most recent debutants matched up, although I think Tochi Hikari had a very different experience than Oikawa. Tochi Hikari does not only get a win here, but a Kachikoshi on top against his peer. And after the streaks went a little bit stale, they look quite different today. At least Shinobu-yama is still on a roll. Meanwhile, Naruto-umi and Naruto-yama joined the streaks with 4 wins apiece each. And at the same time, Kiryugawa and Shionishiki still can't recover. Hiro Segawa manages to break Uchiyama's streak, so he can hope to replace him as the leading Maegashira if his form keeps up. And as we have already discussed, Waka no Hana's reign comes to an end and he currently has to share the crown. And we have 2 further upsets. Naruto-yama is stacking up wins and is now battling the upper Maegashira, and credit here to Maegashira 5 Tokinishiki for taking down the strongest Sekiwake. And of course we have a newcomer in the technique section as well, and it's called Zubineri, the head pivot throw, that fell Uchiyama. And a few more wrestlers secure their Kachikoshi. That's Yokozuna Shionoyama alongside Izumi Nada and Tochi Hikari, both successful in completely different spheres of the Maegashira spectrum. Atagoyama and Tsurugamine collect Makekoshi. And from day 10 onwards, I also want to have a look at the people who are still in contention. So technically a lot of people are still in contention with 5 days to go, that's just the nature of things. We should really be looking at the top 3, which are the 9-1, 8-2 and 7-3 wrestlers. And those are right here. Waka no Hana and Tochinishiki share first place, and some names we have already discussed are following. But let's not dismiss some of the Maegashira like Naruto-yama and Hiro Segawa. So across the board we have some really outstanding performances at any level. And lastly, I also want to look at the demotion picture. Mathematically, both Hakuryoyama and Oginohana are currently in demotion spots to Juryo. They are both on a low rank, they have bad records, it's looking grim, but they still have a chance to climb their way out. It's day 11 and I can announce that Yoshibayama will miss the rest of the tournament. And this day is really the calm before the big storm, because we actually don't really have any video highlights for this day. That doesn't mean that there weren't any big fights, and Kagami-sato seems to have finally found his footing. Chiyonoyama remains in the Yusha race as Tokitsuyama is slowly slipping away. Currently he's looking at a possible demotion to Komusubi. And hey, we can always make up for the lack of highlights by looking at some other fun records. On day 11 the most experienced matchup happened, with Wakasegawa and Mitsuneyama. Together they have more than 40 years of sumo experience. And simultaneously they are also the oldest matchup that will happen. Then there is the battle of the featherweights between Yasume on 93 kg and Kiryugawa on 73 kg. And lastly, Odachi is almost twice as heavy as his opponent Wakabayama. But even in sumo, weight won't guarantee a win. Odachi started out well, but now he's kind of leveling out. Meanwhile, Uchiyama is defending his claim to the top Maegashira wrestler by breaking the 7-win streak of Shinobuyama. And some other wrestlers still have active streaks of note. Izuminada and Wakasegawa are on 4 wins each, and Naruto Umi, Naryoyama and Tochi Nishiki are on a respectable 5 consecutive wins each. The Sanyaku wrestlers in particular have been destructive towards each other's streak, so to see Banzuke leader and top Yokozuna Tochi Nishiki emerge again is just great to see. Kiryugawa meanwhile slips to 7 losses, Shionishiki is on 6 but already with double-digit losses in total, and Mitsuneyama and Osegawa are also staring down the potential abyss with 4 losses in a row each. And surprisingly, Toki Nishiki, who was in stellar form, got upset by Maegashira 11 Fusanishiki. Naryoyama on Maegashira 16 defeats Maegashira 7 Hoshikabuto, and finally Takanishiki from the very bottom of the Banzuke defeats Maegashira 10 Fukunoumi. And still on day 11 some new Kimarite join our list. This time it's Ashitori, the leg pick. This move is very effective against tall wrestlers like Odachi. And on the rare side we have Dashinage and Yori Taoshi. Only 2 Kachikoshi were secured today, by Naryoyama and finally also by Asashio. And there are a staggering 6 Makekoshi by Dewa Minato, Iwakaze, who looked so promising in the beginning, Koinose, Mitsuneyama, Ohikari and Shimanishiki. And a lot of wrestlers are technically still in contention. There's of course Wakanohana, who recovered after his loss yesterday, Tochi Nishiki, who keeps pace with Wakanohana, Tochi Ikari and Uchiyama and Izuminada, the 3 Maegashira on 9 and 2, along with Yokozuna Chiyonoyama and Naryoyama and Asashio, who all remain potential candidates, although Asashio probably has the more direct path to upsetting potential rivals here. The demotion picture has changed slightly. Dewa Minato has joined the discussion, but Oginohana is actually picking up wins, so this could actually become very interesting. Day 12 is a day of crossroads. Tochi Nishiki is facing the best Sekiwake. Kotogahama is one of those guys who's just a very stable presence, not only in this but also in many previous tournaments. But of 17 meets, Kotogahama has only won 3. And it looks like the Sekiwake's luck has truly run out facing peak Tochi Nishiki at the height of his power. But this doesn't mean this won't be a close fight with many back and forths. They settle into grips eventually, and this is where we are now. Look at the leg position. Tochi Nishiki has 1 foot forward and Kotogahama's feet are parallel to each other. And Tochi Nishiki realizes that he has potentially a superior position and goes in for the finish. But he gets played really well. Kotogahama actually wins. He actually didn't back down. Kotogahama stepped into his opponent, lifted him up, and then planted his weight forward. And this is absolutely the upset that Tochi Nishiki did not need. And this may very well compromise the Yokozuna's usual chances. Wakanohana has looked vulnerable though. He is facing Asashio. In total, these two have met 22 times. 11 wins for Wakanohana, 10 wins for Asashio. This is the 22nd time they actually meet. So between them it's always basically a coin toss. And sadly, this monster fight was filmed by some kind of intern, like there's random cuts and the camera is off center. We don't really have the footage of the Tachiai. It's a mess. If you are unsure who is who in this fight, we are looking at Wakanohana's back and Asashio is facing the camera. And the position is very interesting because Asashio is ready to take on Wakanohana in his very element, on a pure belt battle. Wakanohana is actually able to move Asashio around, adjust his grip, and they scramble a little bit. And this could be any man's fight. But ultimately, Asashio prevails and carries Wakanohana out of the ring. And we have to give Asashio huge credit here. He may be the only man who understands how to resist Wakanohana's sudden explosive power and match his fighting smarts. That means Wakanohana also goes down with 2 losses. And as you can see here, Chiyonoyama has caught up with his win today. And additionally, Asashio is only also 1 win away from the top spot. This means that suddenly the whole structure of the basho has been blown wide open. 3 Sanyaku are all eyeing the Yusho, and the 2 front runners have suddenly been stopped dead in their tracks. One threw a mistake and the other was just outbattled fair and square. Let's move on to some lighter news. Wakasegawa and Fusanishiki are divided by 18 years of sumo experience. And ultimately Wakasegawa comes out on top. And despite our 2 front runners folding, plenty of streaks are still active. Dewa Nishiki and Tochi Hikari are on 4 wins in a row, Wakasegawa is now on 5, Naruto Omi even on 6. And some other wrestlers just have a terrible week too. Hoshikabuto and Tsurugamine lose 4 in a row, Mitsuneyama is on 5, Shionishiki on a devastating 7. Naryuyama's streak was broken by Toki Nishiki, and careful with the names here, the Yokozuna Tochi Nishiki streak was ended by Kotogahama as we saw earlier. Then we have a bunch of other upsets in the Maegashira ranks, and most surprising has to be Araiva, who just left the tournament injured for 2 days but now comes back and claims a Kimboshi. And of course it's against Kagami-sato. This means Kagami-sato can't afford any more losses. And we may not have any new techniques, but at least we got 2 rare, the Shitate Hineri and the Amiuchi. And actually the Shitate Hineri was what took down Kagami-sato here. And it was a good days for Kachikoshis. Kotogahama finally gets there alongside Naruto Umi, Toki Nishiki and Yoshinomine. 3 other wrestlers have losing records, that's Anenyama, Fukuno Umi and Hoshikabuto, who I feel had a very quiet week 1 that went kind of okay, and now the wheels are coming off for the man. And on day 11 the contention picture was very narrow, and now it of course has been widened a lot more. We have 5 wrestlers sitting on top. Uchiyama and Tochi Hikari are now in serious hope of an actual Yusho win. And Asashio and for some reason Izumi Nada are up there as well. And technically the 8 and 4s and 7 and 5s are still in contention, but it is very unlikely they will actually get there. So my apologies to Kotogahama, you fought well, but unless a miracle happens, you are very unlikely to win an actual Yusho here. And for the demotion side of things, Ogi Nohana has left the demotion spots with a series of unexpected wins. And Dewa Minato has fully taken his place. And Hakuryu-Yama's situation is just very sad. Not only will he get demoted, but he will drop many ranks down into Juryo as well. A little side note for day 13. The Crown Prince is actually in attendance. And he came just at the right time. 5 people on top. And it's a very intense Yusho race. If I was Japanese royalty, I would have attended as well. Tochi Nishiki and Asashio both seek to slash the other one's Yusho dreams. Let's see how it works out. The Tachiai is actually very clean. Asashio seems so focused to get to the belt that Tochi Nishiki has an opening, spins Asashio around and ends the fight before Asashio can gain any kind of position. So the Yokozuna reigns supreme. And this is actually the one slip up that Asashio didn't need. The other highlight match is between Araiva and Chiyonoyama. Araiva is freshly gilded with a Kimboshi, Chiyonoyama wants to defend his Yusho position. It is all to play for here, and in contrast to other fights, we will start just in the middle with no belt grip or stalemate, These two are just going at it. I mean, look at this fight. Araiwa is like a rabid dog. I don't even understand how Chiyonoyama was able to set up the throw. But in the end, he beats Araiwa by kotenage. I probably like this fight way more than is reasonable. And I would have loved to see Araiwa win, but ultimately Chiyonoyama remains in the lead. But surprisingly, it might actually be Wakanohana who has the most difficult fight of the day. Kagamisato may have dropped some fights against the Maegashira, but against the Sanyaku the man actually fights pretty well. The man has found some form and is very desperate to keep it at 5 losses and not concede anymore. He's basically fighting with his back against the wall. And so far he has not only resisted Wakanohana, he has outpowered him, pushing him to the literal edge. Let's see how the fight goes down. Wakanohana with a strong counter, he goes for the belt. Kagamisato can't get a real grip on him. They have a short scuffle, and ultimately Kagamisato runs out of steam and Wakanohana can push him out. So this is it for the heavy man. And I thought about this fight a lot. I mean, why must it be here of all places? Maybe Kagamisato knew that a worthy replacement had appeared, because he actually led the head-to-head against Wakanohana. And Wakanohana may be smart and very explosive, but there's one more aspect to his sumo. He has a lot of stamina. He tends to wear opponents down. And it seems like he himself doesn't even get any weaker through the going-ons of a fight. And that's the thing, Kagamisato fought very well, he gave it his everything. But everything wasn't good enough today. So this is the end of Yokozuna Kagamisato. There's no place for him in this new era of sumo. And on a short note, 2 more Sanyaku battles happened today. Tokitsuyama and Shimitsugawa both battled on who might claim a Kachikoshi, and Wakahaguro denies Tamanoumi any kind of recovery. This means Tamanoumi goes Makekoshi. He truly was just a one-off. And we have a few people still on streaks. Dewa Nishiki and Wakamaeda are sitting on 5 wins. For Wakamaeda on Komusubi, this is especially noteworthy, I think. And Wakasegawa is on 6 wins. Dewa Minato, now at a very high risk of demotion, is on a losing streak at 4. Hoshikabuto and Tsurugamine have extended their consecutive losses to 5, and Mitsuneyama sits on a whopping 6. Naruto Umi meanwhile secures a Kachikoshi by breaking Futatsuryo's streak. And I found the upsets to be particularly funny today, because usually the single-digit Maegashira get beaten up by the Sanyaku, but this time it's kind of the opposite world. The double-digit Maegashira are now beating up the single digits. And some of these, I mean, oh my god. Tochi Ikari, this should have been a surefire win. It's not like he stacks up bad against Kuni Nobori. But as you can see, this late in the tournament, the ranks are almost meaningless. Wrestlers with very similar records are pitted against each other, but still Maegashira 19 Oginohana beats Maegashira 8 Mitsuneyama. And it seems almost unfair on paper, but then again, Mitsuneyama has a basho to completely forget. And it was a good day for rare techniques as well. Dewa Nishiki performs a Kimedashi, that's an arm-barring force-out. Koninobori makes an appearance with an Abise Taoshi. And that is the backward force down. And finally, Kiryugawa succumbs to Takanishiki's Kimetaoshi. And that is the arm-barring force down. And then we have a whole bunch of rarely seen techniques. Uwatenage, Kimedashi, Tsuridashi, Abise Taoshi and Kimetaoshi. All rare techniques. And a lot of wrestlers will be very excited to see that they have secured Kachikoshis today. So that's Dewa Nishiki, Futatsuryo, Kuninobori, Shinobuyama, Wakahaguro and Wakasegawa. And we have 2 additional Makekoshis, that's Kiryugawa and Tamanoumi. So Tamanoumi, the previous basho winner, has now officially entered the damage control phase. And as expected, the contention picture has slimmed down considerably. We have a 4-way tie on top. Uchiyama remains the sole Maegashira there. He is sandwiched between 2 Yokozuna and an Ozeki. Tochi Ikari is in the lone 2nd place, followed by a brigade of 9 and 4 records. And technically these are still in contention, but they have very slim chances. At best they may get into a playoff. And the demotion picture hasn't changed at all actually, but at least Hakuryoyama has picked up a win, so that's good for the guy. We are on the second to last day, and I feel like we didn't really have the chance to appreciate Uchiyama here. And I mean, look at the impressive size difference here. Uchiyama, even with his back bent forward, is as tall as Naruto Umi, who has his back straightened up. And this is a very unfortunate highlight bout, because we won't see any of the probably impressive sumo Uchiyama performed. He will get out-battled by Naruto Umi and thrown to the ground. I think Naruto Umi, he's in good form and he's really smart about using his lower center of gravity, and he just topples over the big man. Of course, I personally would have loved to see other footage from Uchiyama from this basho, but this is what we got, and it's probably not very representative of his achievements. Anyways, the real highlight is this: Wakanohana against Tochi Nishiki. In the recent days, those two have been back and forth with the tournament lead, and their fates are now directly intertwined. Now, quick disclaimer, this fight is filmed almost entirely in slow motion, and I can't break down the entire fight, but I will give you some keynotes. These guys fight very similar. In fact, their skills are very similar, their qualities are similar, and they both just want to force their sumo, which results in one of the most iconic fights in sumo history. At the tachiai, it's a great lead from Wakanohana with the shoulder, and they both settle into belt grips. And I can't show the whole fight, but they both clamp down on the belt, and it results in a stalemate. After a while, the Gyoji is forced to break up the fight, and then restart it. And actually, nobody budges. There are actually a few attempts to throw the opponent here, but generally, both wrestlers are realizing their full defensive potential. We are nearing a very rare second interruption. This means the Gyoji starts the fight fresh from the beginning with a new tachiai. I actually had a section scripted for all the drawn out fights Wakanohana was involved in during his career, like the amazing draw in 1955 that made him an Ozeki, or the other fights previously with Tochi Nishiki. But let's just watch. It's everything on the line for Wakanohana. What will he do? So, in the end, Wakanohana hankers. Feel about it how you will, but he broke the stalemate. And if we look at the highlights, we can see that Shionoyama actually also dropped his mat, which suddenly makes Wakanohana the sole leader of the tournament. And the way this has played out has to be some kind of freak occurrence, because Shionoyama lost against none other than Kagamisato. That means Kagamisato might just have helped the man that ended his career to replace him at the Yokozuna rank. And within one day, 3 of the 4 basho leaders lose. Only Wakanohana remains. Okay, let's take a deep breath for now. We look at some other notable matchups. We have another match with the biggest gap in experience, Wakasegawa against Oikawa. And like so many times before, the more experienced wrestler won. And we have a match of the heavyweights with 332 kilograms in total. Takanishiki beats Odachi. And moving on quickly to the streaks, Dewa Nishiki and Waka Maeda each scored 6 wins. In their winning streaks, Wakasegawa has climbed up to 7, and 3 wrestlers have 4 losses in a row: Fukunoumi, Hirosegawa and Shima Nishiki. And this time the upsets are all within the Maegashira ranks, and looking at a few of those, I guess purely based on form, Odachi should have probably defeated Takanishiki in the battle of the heavyweights, but even with a 9 rank difference, he wasn't able to do it. And that's not even to mention the immense height difference between the two. Futatsuryu and Naryoyama is arguably even worse, just based on rank and record. And now with the finish line in sight, some people secure their Kachikoshi, and these are Fusanishiki, Kagamisato, Kitano Nada, Takanishiki, Wakabayama and Wakamaeda. And sadly, Araiwa, Hajimayama, Oikawa and Tokitsuyama sadly couldn't secure their winning records. And the leaderboard is now very, very slim. Wakanohana is in the sole lead, and everyone else is just trying to chase him. All Wakanohana needs to do is not slip up on the last day of the basho. And lastly, the demotion picture hasn't changed despite Dewa Minato's win, it's just a little too late. And just a spoiler, it didn't come to the wire. The last day is a formality at this point. Let's quickly check out some of the final fights of the tournament. And Asashio probably has flashbacks losing like this. Just on the last day he has one of his famous slip-ups. At this point, Waka no Hana has already beaten Waka Maeda and secured the Yusho win. Still, the Yokozuna have to battle, so it's Tochi Nishiki against Kagami Sato. And in this battle, Kagami Sato adds insult to injury, as he pushes out Tochi Nishiki kind of exactly the way he almost did to Waka no Hana. So that leaves Waka no Hana as the only wrestler with 13 wins and the sole Yusho winner. And maybe on a quick side note, Kotogahama recovered from a few losses he had mid-tournament against Tokitsuyama and finishes on a very respectable 11-4 record. And there were a few other very interesting matchups. Two of the younglings fight, that's Oikawa against Ogi no Hana, and Oikawa secures the win. And just as was expected, the two bouts with the biggest gap in ranks happened on the last day. And they were both huge upsets. Dewa Minato beats a struggling Shionishiki and Uchiyama finds one last win to round out a really good tournament. And we have a few lucky people who will carry their winning streak into the next tournament. Dewa Nishiki even has 7 in a row, I think that's huge, and Ohikari and Toki Nishiki with 4 wins each are also very respectable. Of course, every light has a shade. Fukuno Umi has 5 losses in a row, and Izuminada, who looked so promising, collapsed and now has stacked up 4 losses. To me that seems like a wrestler who is easily carried by his momentum. And lastly, Waka Maeda's and Wakasegawa streaks both got broken on the last day. And I don't want to dwell on the upsets too long, but I think it's important to point out that momentum matters. When you get crushed in the upper Maegashira ranks in the first week by the Sanyaku, some wrestlers simply just can't recover. For example, take Shionishiki or Iwakaze here. And strangely enough, we also have Komusubi Shimitsugawa and Sekiwake Wakahaguro losing to Uchiyama and Tochi Hikari respectively. I'm just glad to see the two outstanding Maegashira wrestlers doing their victory lap and crowning their tournaments. And even right down to day 15, people find new ways for exciting wins. Dewa Minato pulls off a Watashikomi, that is a thigh-grabbing pushdown. Additionally, there were a rare Hatakikomi and an Ashitori. Hirosegawa, Kaizan, Miyanishiki, Odachi and Osegawa all clinched their Kachikoshi on the last day of the tournament, while Maenoyama, Ogi no Hana, Ono Nishiki, Shimitsugawa and Yasome miss their Kachikoshi by a hair and go Makekoshi. The demotion of Dewa Minato and Hakuryoyama is now official as well, and for completeness sake, here are the final results of the Basho. Waka no Hana is the sole leader in contention, he has secured the Yusho. And I must say, what a hard-fought victory. So, where does this leave us? Let's check out the results. Waka no Hana wins the Yusho, Chiyonoyama and Uchiyama are in the joint Jun Yosho, and Dewa Minato and Hakuryoyama go down to Juryo. The special prize winners are Waka Maeda with the Fighting Spirit prize and Kitano Nada with the Technique prize. If you are interested, you can pause the video and read the rest of the records here. The Juryo Yusho is won by Tsune Nishiki, and together with Juryo 2 Hyodoshi, he will be promoted to the Makuuchi division. And also special shout out to the second lowest ranked Juryo wrestler with the most amazing Shikona, Waka Chichibu, who is Juryo's runner up. Let's look at some other statistics about the tournament. Someday I will show all kinds of tournaments lined up in a row and how the Kimarite changed over time, but for now we only have the single graph. And I have to say, in terms of Kimarite, this was a really diverse tournament. There were only, in air quotes, about 25% Yorikiri with Yoritaoshi, Oshidashi, Uwatenage and Hatakikomi following suit. And the little orange dot is the share of all available techniques used. So of the about 70 recognized Kimarite at the time, 59% appeared, which is actually pretty high. And I would like to introduce to you another plot. This is a kind of heat map of sorts, because I try to capture the vibes for each sumo wrestler, so kind of the subjective impression of their performances throughout the tournament. Each wrestler is one of these lines. The ones at the top are white, the mid ones are red, and the bottom ones are purple or black. And depending on the performance, they either pick up or lose some of the heat over the course of the tournament. So even though the top ones come in blazing hot, I wanted to make sure that any wrestler can go pitch black or glowing white by the end. I won't bore you with the math behind it or all the things I tried to make it work, but just as a baseline, I assume that the top guy is expected to get more than 12 wins and the bottom one will get at least about 3 wins from somewhere. And that's just to give the upper and lower limit some wiggle room. And things go from there based on initial expectations. And of course I've sorted it neatly by rank, and you can see it on the vertical axis where the Sanyaku rank ends and the Maegashira ranks start. And the Sanyaku overall didn't do badly. The upper Maegashira though, man, that's just tough. They cooled off so hard, and in the bottom we have some middling performances and a few outliers for good and for bad. Let's zoom into certain sections of the graph. The most brightest glowing line of course belongs to Wakanohana. And as you can see, Kagamisato came in at kind of a tomatoey red. Yoshibayama of course has almost completely frozen over. But from the Sekiwake 2 spot, that's Tokitsuyama, onward, the performances weren't as great. And Tamanoumi really performed the worst of the bunch, save for Yoshibayama who got injured. And going down to the Maegashira, yeah, it's a lot of bad performances here. Shionishiki did particularly badly. But we also have 2 literal bright spots in Toki Nishiki and Tochi Hikari. And even further down the black hole we have a few unremarkable performances, some stinkers by Fukunoumi, Koinose and Atagoyama, and of course Uchiyama as the complete outlier in the bunch. And lastly, the bottom did well considering they all start purple and black. But it is still easy to spot the 2 demotees, that's Hakuryoyama and Dewa Minato. But almost everyone here did well considering their expectation. I am especially happy for Oginohana who managed to climb out of his hole, because remember, he was briefly in the demotion picture as well. And here is someone who won't make a comeback anymore. Kagamisato. After the tournament he was recorded taking a bath and being all smiles. But when he got his hair dressed, he looked very lost in thought, almost mellow. I have a feeling he wanted those 10 wins to keep going. I don't know which of his losses weighed on his mind the most, but he certainly knew that his time to part from the Yokozuna rank had come and he was to retire. He was certainly a big man in more ways than one, but he never was a fan favorite of the era and he packed more than just his weight. He was an amazing technician, and I think he was underappreciated even at his time. After retiring, he had a very brief stint at Tokitsukaze stable as the heir to Futabayama. And that stable is still active today, and it is best known for Shodai and Toki Hayate these days. But Kagamisato didn't stay for long, because a different master was sought. So he founded his own stable, Tatsugawa, which in hindsight wasn't particularly successful. But after being absorbed by another stable, it eventually produced some top-ranked wrestlers. Kagamisato retired in 1988, and he certainly stuck around for longer than usual. Sumo wrestlers, unlike the rest of Japan, experience well shorter lives. But Kagamisato became one of the oldest Yokozuna, and eventually he passed away in 2004. I kind of wish we had images of him sporting the red Yokozuna robe, but from what I read at the time he wasn't in very good health and he couldn't perform. It is kind of strange how Yoshibayama is the opposite to Kagamisato, yet so similar. Unlike Kagamisato, he hadn't made a bet or anything, but after the tournament was done, the signs were very clear. His retirement was long overdue. Yoshibayama had always been a big lad. Legend has it he was recruited by accident when his master was to meet a completely different student and saw this big kid that eventually became Yoshibayama. And over the course of his career, he became amazingly popular in Japan. But he only ever recorded one Yusho after Yokozuna promotion. He is also a World War II veteran, and from the battles he carried a permanent injury. In a lot of cases after a wrestler retires, we ask ourselves what could have been, what was the true potential of this wrestler. But for Yoshibayama this might be a very legitimate question. The injury happened outside of the ring, and he was a complete biological freak. Would he have won more? Unlike Kagamisato though, his career after leaving the dojo was very successful. He was a ringside judge, he opened a chain of restaurants, and even before it was forbidden, he had his own stable even while he was an active wrestler. Of course this meant he would become a coach after his career in the Miyagi-No stable. I don't think I will ever be able to wrap my head around the circumstances on how he became the stable master. It's a very complicated affair. But if you're interested, I encourage you to read it up yourself. It's a crazy story. The bottom line is, his stable produced many successful wrestlers, and eventually even arguably one of the best, if not the best Yokozuna in sumo's modern history, Hakuho. Hakuho adopted Yoshibayama's Shiranui ring entrance style for the dojo, and he even wore the same green Kensho Mawashi that once belonged to Yoshibayama. Sadly, the master himself never saw it. Yoshibayama died relatively young in 1977. He was one of the greatest when it comes to sheer form factor and off the ring. What happened after the Hatsubasho? Well, first of all, Wakanohana did it. He ascended and became the 45th Yokozuna. And just for a second, think about it. The guy has a feature film out, he candidly shows his life in front of the camera. Even between the tournament highlights there were sections of Wakanohana backstage preparing, being a good sport all around and just pleasant to be around. Yet I personally felt that there were some aspects of fame that didn't appeal to him. He was surprisingly timid with the trophy in hand. Maybe he feels the metaphorical weight of it, or some thoughts are with his deceased son at this point. The real test for him has just begun. He is the torchbearer for a new era of sumo, and it will rise and fall with him. Other than that, it was a pretty colorful tournament with huge emotions, an unprecedented double Yokozuna retirement plus promotion, a very technique-rich tournament with a gigantic Banzuke. This one has to be up there with some of the best bashos ever. That's at least my personal feeling. And oh yeah, remember this graph? I showed it in the very beginning. This is the trajectory of every sumo wrestler's career, every Rikishi's win and loss difference of this tournament. I told you whoever wins today will be the defining Rikishi of the era. Yes, that single red line on top, that is the career of Wakanohana. Here it is, singled out in its entire beauty. He will have much more to show. I hope you're looking forward to it, because next time we are going to look at his Yokozuna debut. I guess this is it then. The end credits, a place to talk maybe a little bit more relaxed and open without many cuts. Thank you for watching my very first video. For all it's worth, I managed to avoid AI, and here you can see all of my sources listed. If you see any mistakes or have questions or just want to discuss or give any kind of feedback, good or bad, feel free to leave a comment or just give a thumbs up. This will signal to YouTube that you want to see more of my future uploads, and this helps me a lot. These videos cost me money to make, and my goal is to someday be cost neutral. So the best thing you can do for a small channel is of course spread the word, but just in case your bank account feels a little too heavy, you can donate some money on Ko-Fi as well. Or is it coffee? I'm never sure how to pronounce it. I probably redid this whole presentation like 3 times. I hope the next one comes out very soon, but there are no promises. I appreciate you being here. Remember that you are loved and that you deserve love. See you next time!